In tonight's headlines, visitors to Ocean Park will get only 10 minutes of panda time to avoid overcrowding. The implementation of the proposed tobacco control measures is likely to be delayed as authorities consider a step-by-step approach. And Chief Executive John Lee will travel to Beijing tomorrow for his annual duty visit to brief President Xi on the latest economic, social, and political situation in Hong Kong.
Ocean Park's chairman Paulo Pong defended the 10-minute time limit for viewing the giant pandas An and Ke, stating that it is sufficient and helps prevent overcrowding. Taking to the airwaves, the amusement park chief explained that the crowd control measures were implemented to ensure a pleasant and safe experience for visitors, as the exhibit has a limited capacity. He noted that compared to some other locations where viewing time is restricted to just 3 to 4 minutes, Ocean Park's 10-minute limit is relatively adequate. Pong also mentioned that An and Ke debuted earlier than expected as they quickly adapted to their new environment. The two Beijing-gifted furry stars' first public appearance on Sunday drew thousands of fans, with some reportedly waiting up for 4 hours due to crowd control measures. Additionally, Pong shared that the panda cubs born in August are good in health and are expected to be ready to meet the public around Chinese New Year. The reinforced tobacco control measures proposed by the Health Bureau in June, initially scheduled to be submitted to the Legislative Council by the end of this year, is likely to be delayed until early 2025. The plan includes continuing the review of tobacco taxes, expanding smoke-free areas, banning smoking while queuing, adding the fines for smoking offense, and banning the possession of e-cigarettes and alternative smoking products. The most controversial part was the proposed ban on flavored cigarettes, such as menthol and fruit-flavored varieties. Lawmaker Peter Su hoped that the authorities could adopt a step-by-step approach, implementing the legislation in phases. He urged caution regarding the ban on flavored cigarettes, emphasizing the importance to respect the choices of adult Hong Kongers and consider the preferences of smoking tourists. Su also called on the government to enhance public consultation and continue efforts to promote smoking cessation and smoke-free policies. Meanwhile, lawmaker Rebecca Chen, who also chairs the panel on health services at the Legislative Council, noted that the delay could be beneficial, allowing more time for the government to explain the policies to legislators and to educate the public. Chen suggested that a concrete data could be provided to explain the government's rationale for targeting flavored cigarettes. Jeremy Zhu, Cable News.
Chief Executive John Lee will travel to Beijing for his annual duty visit and meet with the state leaders tomorrow. During his 4-day visit, the city leader is expected to brief senior officials on the latest economic, social, and political situation in Hong Kong, according to a government statement. He's also anticipated to meet with President Xi Jinping while in the capital. The last meeting between the two occurred in Peru during the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit in November. Accompanying Lee will be the director of the Chief Executive's Office, Carol Imp, and Private Secretary Vicky Kwok. In Lee's absence, Chief Secretary Eric Chen and Financial Secretary Paul Chen will alternate in the leadership role.
As political uncertainty looms large over Syria, sporadic gunfire could still be heard in the capital Damascus. The nation is trying to avoid footfalls after a united rebel force overthrew the government of President Bashar al-Assad, who fled and sought asylum in Russia 2 days ago. In something that could possibly set the country on the right course, the leader of Syria's opposition, Abu Muhammad al-Golani, met with Prime Minister Mohammad Ghazi Jalali to discuss a political transition. Meanwhile, taking advantage of the regime change in Syria, Israeli forces have seized control of a buffer zone in the Golan Heights, which was established after a ceasefire 50 years ago. Israel said the move is temporary and necessary to stop the turmoil in Syria from spilling over to its own borders. The events in Syria sparked further tensions in the already volatile Middle East, where Israel's ongoing conflict with Palestinian group Hamas and its recently concluded fragile peace deal with Lebanon have claimed more than 50,000 lives. Sachin Katwi, Cable News.
After barely surviving an impeachment vote just last weekend, South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol is now in fear of receiving an arrest warrant over his unconstitutional martial law declaration. In a dramatic turn of events, the National Assembly passed a resolution this afternoon calling for the immediate arrest of Yoon and 7 other officials on insurrection charges. Although this opposition-led motion lacks legal authority, it serves as a significant pressure compelling Yoon to resign. Additionally, the National Assembly also approved a bill to appoint a standing special prosecutor tasked with investigating Yoon's alleged rebellion. Also subject to the investigation will be Prime Minister Han Duck-soo, former floor leader of the ruling People Power Party, former Defense Minister Kim Yong-hyun, and various military commanders. While a sitting South Korean president has immunity from prosecution, that does not extend to allegations of rebellion or treason. Meanwhile, Yoon's own party also prepares to push for its own bill calling for a special counsel investigation into Yoon's insurrection charge and other possible offenses linked to the martial law declaration. In a further twist, Yoon received an overseas travel ban from the Justice Ministry just yesterday, making him the first incumbent South Korean president ever forbidden to leave the country. In the meantime, prosecutors are also seeking to formally arrest former Defense Minister Kim Yong-hyun for allegedly colluding with Yoon in imposing martial law. Kim has been detained since Sunday. Should an arrest warrant be issued, he would be the first person arrested in the case. Kwon Tin-yak, Cable News.
Luigi Manione, the suspect responsible for killing the chief executive of a U.S. health insurance firm, has been charged with murder in New York. Police arrested 26-year-old Manione at a fast food restaurant in Pennsylvania, where a customer recognized the suspect from media coverage and alerted an employee who tipped off the police. The alleged killer was carrying multiple fake IDs and a 3D printed gun with a loaded magazine when he was detained. A manhunt was underway since last week for Manione, who was not identified then, for killing Brian Thompson in New York on December 4th. The 50-year-old chief executive of United Healthcare was fatally shot outside a hotel in Midtown Manhattan, where the medical insurance giant was holding an investors' meeting. Police say Thompson was targeted in a pre-planned killing. Manione has not entered a plea, but was denied bail.
Taiwan reported today that it has monitored the largest maritime deployment by Beijing around the island in decades. A spokesman for Taiwan's defense ministry indicated that over 21 vessels and 47 aircraft from China's People's Liberation Army were tracked around the Taiwan Strait within 24 hours leading up to 6 a.m. The PLA's presence extended into waters beyond the first island chain, which includes Japan, Taiwan, parts of the Philippines, and Indonesia, all critical areas for the United States' dominance in the Pacific. In a separate development, Taiwan authorities said that the PLA had established 7 zones of reserved airspace off its coastal Zhejiang and Fujian provinces. No live-fire exercises had yet taken place in the zones, which lie to the north and northwest of Taiwan, respectively, according to the spokesman. Beijing, however, has not confirmed military drills or acknowledged the large-scale deployment cited by Taipei. When asked to comment on the issue, Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Mao Ning refrained from providing any detail, but stated China will firmly defend its national sovereignty and territorial integrity.
Chinese high-end cosmetics firm Mao Ping made a dazzling trading debut after becoming this year's king of frozen capital. The stock leapt 60% over its offering price to open at $47.65. At one point, it reached as high as $57.2, almost doubling its price, before closing at $52.6, up 76% against the IPO price, making investors smile with a paper gain of $2,280 per lot of 100 shares. The debut is the best trading performance for a new stock worth more than $100 million over the last 4 years. The beauty company sold 78.4 million shares at $29.8 each, which was the top of a price range flagged to investors when the deal launched last week, and attracted a staggering response with the retail portion oversubscribed by 918 times, while the allocation for global investors was 29 times oversubscribed. It has drawn the highest amount of margin loans this year at $156 billion.
China's trade performance in November fell short of expectations, pointing to a grim economic outlook ahead of U.S. President-elect Donald Trump's threat to slap extra tariffs on Chinese goods. According to the Customs Authority, exports grew by 6.7% year-on-year in U.S. dollar terms, a significant drop from the 12.7% growth seen in the previous month. The figure also fell below market expectations of 8.7%, signaling a weak demand for Chinese goods. Imports unexpectedly fell for a second month, shrinking 3.9%, marking their worst performance in 9 months. Analysts had previously predicted a modest 0.9% increase in imports, indicating a sharp drop in domestic demand. These trade figures come on the heels of China's top leaders committing to a more proactive fiscal policy and a looser monetary policy to bolster the economy. Meanwhile, the ASEAN region stood firm as China's top trading partner, with trade hitting $87.3 billion in November. For the first 11 months of the year, exports to ASEAN countries rose by 11.2%, while imports went up by 1.8%. The EU followed, with exports up by 2.4% and imports down by 4.3%. Trade with the US saw imports climb by 3.9%, with imports hold steady. Cheryl Yun, Cable News.